Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, episode number 234, The Wild Wild West, the classic 1965 series starring Robert Conrad and Ross Martin. With me tonight, we're back, folks. It's been a somewhat long hiatus, but not a planned long hiatus, but after almost 6.5 weeks. Joining me tonight is my friend, my co-host, the one and only, Mr. Ross Amico. Ross, welcome.
Roy Belquist. It's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
Wonder what that was from.
We have not seen one another, I think, for about as long as Ross Martin was off the series.
You know, it's funny that you said that, and I was actually Ross Martin sadly had a hiatus when they were filming, and then of course Robert Conrad had a several week hiatus while the series was being shot, which we'll talk about this evening.
Getting ahead of ourselves
during the production, but just trying to put things in perspective as regards to time. But we're back, we're here. It's great to be back, and yeah. Let's take a look at the comments and see who's out there.
We're back. We're here. It's hot.
It is hot. It is hot. You know, what's interesting, Russ, before I do the comments.
Yeah.
Our last show that we did was May 31st. So we actually have not had any shows during the whole month of June. And we are now in the latter part of July. So anyway, with that said.
I switched to my summer brew.
Oh, did you? Okay. I've got my Coke Zero, so I'm good. Anyway, Matt's out there. Matt Anthony. Hey, Matt. Yeah, he said we've been waiting since June. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate that. Randy's out there. Randy Lee. This one is actually happening. I know. We're going to be hit with all these jokes tonight. The Hague is out there. Yep. Is this real? Yeah, we're AI. We're AI, John. Or is it a memorial? Yeah, there we go. Let me see. More new comments coming in. I also see Randy saying must be because of Roy's birthday.
Yes. Happy belated, Roy.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah.
Thanks, hon. Cherry's out there saying welcome back, guys. We missed you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate that. Alan is out there. Hi, time to pop the champagne. Get the champagne out. We're back.
Wow. People are actually showing up. I didn't think anybody would actually show up. It's been so long, especially on a Sunday night. But
yeah, here goes Matt with the comments. Now Roy's only 1 month to lead. Nice. At least I know you're not a pod, Matt. That's one thing that you're confirming.
That's funny.
Hey, Jerry. Thanks for being out there. And Christian is also out there. Christian is joining us from Canada. Welcome, Hi. Christian. Don Bethman is out there joining us from Delaware. Hey, Don. Lou is out there. Welcome, Lou. Lou is joining us from Rhode Island. Very cool. And Matt is saying, William Shatner, I saw a picture of Roy eating a gigantic sundae. Hey, truth be told, Matt, there's a lot of pictures out there of me eating big sundaes. So.
Oh, my goodness. There's so much catching up to do here. You know, you were at Ticonderoga and,
yeah,
we've had a lot of bad weather and things getting knocked out and equipment failing and other commitments. Yeah.
We've had storms here. We've had power outages. I've had computer issues, not necessarily all in that order. So that kind of stuff has been happening. Just to kind of do a summary. There were a couple times we were going to try to do this show. We wanted to do this show, and then it got put off. And then the weeks kind of went by in regards to that. Hey, Colin. Colin's joining us from the UK. Welcome, Colin. He's saying blame the squirrels.
Not the squirrels.
The squirts. Oh, I'm seeing what I want to say.
Not the squirrels. Yeah, well, he means squirrels.
Yeah.
He had a squirrel type it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's been a lot of stuff. In regards to good stuff, though, yes, bringing up about being at Ticonderoga last weekend with William Shatner was headlined there, and he was there. 93 years old, and he is amazing. The way he doesn't stop. And I had the pleasure of being assisting Sandy Gimple, and talk about such a nice person, very pleasant, just very, so much history and for what she's done. And if you haven't not checked out her IMDb listings, definitely check it out. Just like William Shatner, my God, I mean, it's incredible the work that Sandy has done. So just to put that out there. Eva is joining us. Eva, hi, thanks for being out there. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a great weekend, but it was a busy weekend.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people, and it was very hot. So that was the one thing. It was hot up north, just like it was hot down here. But just so folks know, William Shatner will be returning in November. So if you missed him out this time around, definitely check him out. He'll be back. And and Sandy's actually going to be up there too as well too. So that's really cool. But what else, Ross? Let's go through the list of things that we wanted to talk about. There's so much in sci-fi.
Are you talking about the show now, or what? You talking about Wild Wild West, or?
No, I'm just about other things that we missed.
Oh, in general.
Yeah. Oh, so this is a perfect lead-in. I mean, Mike and Mary Beth will be talking about this on Wednesday, but Close Encounters of the Third Kind was released in the theaters again, and which is really cool. That I think it was out on, let me see, July 7th, which was a Sunday, and July 10th, which was a Wednesday. Right. So for the folks out there, if you had the opportunity to see it, Ross, I know you did. I wanted to try to catch that with you, but it didn't work out. But
it was one of those Fathom events. It's not like the old days where they would reissue these things for a 2-week engagement or something. It's too bad that's one of the things about home video or streaming. That's one of the things that streaming kind of punctured. That you can't. Well, they were already doing. No, they did reissue Superman for a little bit when they had the director's cut, and they did it with the Star Wars quote unquote special editions and that sort of thing. But anymore, you got Fathom, one night only.
Well, 2 nights.
2 nights for Close Encounters.
With Close Encounters.
Boy, it's something going back and watching it. We're not talking about the movie, but it's something going back and watching it now from our current perspective. Just all I saw the last time I saw it in the theater was for the 45th anniversary. I think it was 2017 or something. So it's like the blink of an eye, but it really is a classic because what you bring to it from what's happened in the meantime, it's just like it's not a totally different movie, but there's a whole other perspective to it. With the prevalence of the conspiracy theories and just this is all kinds of stuff that just pops out now that wasn't really intended, or it was not viewed the same way we would view it now.
Right. It's 1977 versus 2024. I mean, literally 47 year difference.
It's definitely worth taking another look, because I know everybody out there probably seen it recently. Probably watch it 5 times a week, but the other thing that was striking is just how optimistic and hopeful it was, and how that's so absent from the movies nowadays.
Right.
It's just a beautiful movie.
Yeah, films are a lot darker, unfortunately, and even television has gone in that direction. So yeah, I may want to watch that just to pull it out. I mean, you can stream it at home and watch it on the screen, what have you. But I'm glad you had the opportunity to see it, and it's for the folks out there. If you didn't have the opportunity, definitely check it out. But anyway, just wanted to give a plug, and I'll talk about that later. Mike and Mary Beth are going to be talking about that on Wednesday. Also, Martin is joining us now. Martin, who's usually in New York, is like literally right down the road. He is in the area, and we were going to try to get together, but it didn't work out because of timing, because he was on a very tight schedule, and then I was on the schedule as well, trying to get some things done with the show, and he's like literally 15 minutes away. So anyway, I mean, he's so close. So last time I got to see Martin in person was last year. So we will definitely try to connect again. And thanks for the attempt on that, Martin, too. And yes, Matt, William Shatner is going to be in Valley Forge. I did see that online as well, too. So that's going on. Let me see here. John said streaming killed the video star.
Yeah.
The Exorcist in 2000, yes. And let me me see. Don said, "I'll make the effort if it's a 35 millimeter." I don't. Was it a 35 millimeter print that they showed, Ross?
I don't remember if it was. I mean, it's out of the theater now anyway.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Eva just said off topic, but 2001: Space Odyssey was on last night. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
They televised it.
35 millimeter was positive. Yeah. It wasn't 70. That would have been something. We don't have those. We don't seem to have those screens anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Forrest Gump. But I digress. Thanks, Colin.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes. So we're going to start to talk about the Wild Wild West.
Yeah. Let's talk about what time is it? Where are we? Is it 7:30 yet?
No. It's 7:20, Ross.
7:20. I have a phone here somewhere. Yeah. 7:19. Let's go.
All right, let's go. We're out of the gates.
All great that the views
of J. Allen Hynek and Jacques Vallée.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back, and musically too. I mean, just all the musical stuff that went over my head when I was a kid, and now I know a little bit about it. It's a lot in that movie.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
It is a classic. Unfortunately, it is a classic, but it is a classic. Steampunk before it had a name, yes.
Exactly.
And that's so true.
Not Close Encounters.
No, we're talking about
West.
Wild West. Yeah. Exactly. That's
exactly what it was. Yeah, the steampunk didn't really come in, I guess, until the 80s when they started. Yeah.
The late 80s.
So, really what the idea behind the show was to capitalize. Well, the Western was perennially popular, so ever since there have been, movies and certainly television, Westerns have been popular, but, the whole spy craze with James Bond, the Sci-Fi, I guess we call it, really dominated. One of the dominating genres of the 60s. So why don't you take like the two most popular genres and mash them up with a dash of science fiction to boot? I really wanted it to go into like Avengers territory at times. I wanted to push it even further. Sometimes it got pretty surreal, but I wanted more surreality at points in the Wild Wild West.
No, Ross, did you first start watching the Wild Wild West in the 70s?
Yeah.
Okay,
because I have memories. I don't remember when it was on. I think it was on a rerun on a weekend or something. Because I have memories of watching it with my grandparents, and for some reason I think it was in the afternoon. But
I remember it in the afternoons, and I remember it being on Channel 9 WOR. Now, Channel 9 used to be out of New York City for a while, and then they moved it to Secaucus, or it was in Secaucus, and then it went to New York. It's one or the other, I forget. But anyway, that's where I used to watch it when it was on. That was one of the memories, but it was one of those shows that I thought was so cool because of the gadgets, and the sci-fi elements, and also the cool fight scenes, and the very thing that pretty much got. Unfortunately, it got the show, banned, after
between that and the constant knives in the back. How many times knives been thrown into people on that show?
It was just great action. I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was
bloodless. It was bloodless, but it was violent. But it was escapism. It wasn't like the violence we see now.
I mean, it's not something you're not going to go out and do that.
But unfortunately, the timing was not the best because the 1960s were rife with assassinations and Vietnam War and everything else. The television, the news. So they had a congressional committee go after television and try to clean it up a little bit.
Right.
Thinking that it encouraged violence, which probably to some extent, I think our entertainment does encourage violence. But
the irony is, if you look at
it's so innocent.
What was then to compare to what is now. Now, okay, you don't have the fight scenes that you really had back then. But what happens is now you're basically just nuking countries, or you're
thrown into a dystopian hell. Oh yeah, you mean the video games and stuff. Oh yeah.
I mean, so it's like by comparison, it's really nothing. But
Right. It's just
again,
we've gone down the slope so much further.
we got a little ahead of ourselves. But
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to talk.
I wanted to point out
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I liked it, because it was just it was fun.
It was a fun show. And talking about the fight scenes, I mean, Robert Conrad really threw himself into those fight scenes with gusto.
He really did.
And he wasn't afraid to take a few on the chin either. It's like, come on, Jim West, put up your arms and try to block some of the punches. He'll beat like 5 guys, and somebody will come up and like steamroll him, like right in the face. And he gets up again and starts beating them and throwing them out the windows.
Hey,
Yeah.
Dennis. Dennis is joining us from Canada. Welcome. Dennis Chevalier is out there.
Hi, Dennis. So yeah, Michael Garrison, the guy who created the show, described it as James Bond on horseback. You always hear about Gene Roddenberry and the comparison to Horatio Hornblower, in space, or whatever he said it was, or Wagon Train in space, I suppose,
Right.
is another
Wagon Train to the Stars.
Wagon Train to the Stars. Well, and Michael Garrison called it James Bond on horseback, and that's what he was striving for when he did this. But personally, I'm happy that, I guess it was the spy elements, the espionage elements, just taken to the extreme that made it, because the show's set in post Civil War, so it's like 1870s, or it's during the Grant administration. So, but all of the technology some of the technology was possible if they had conceived of it back then, but it was just kind of pushing it, into the 20th century. And that kind of made it fun with all the gadgetry and the compounds and things. You always had the megalomaniacal villain of the week who always, he always had some kind of, especially in the early episodes, but they brought it back also. They would have like, somebody would have iron legs, or the henchman would always be some sort of superhuman creature or cyborg or something. And the plan would always be so grandiose that it would, they'd be taking out the whole Southwest, or sometimes they wanted to take over the country or the world, or, it was always, farewell, Mr. Bond, that kind of thing.
Right. It was nice knowing you.
Yeah. And they'd always leave Jim West in some, inescapable trap. Especially, which one was it? There was one where he's in a wine cellar, and it's like, well, why didn't they just, stay and kill him? They say, okay, we're going to put you on this boxcar. We're going to send you out over the ocean, and then you're going to explode in this. Goodbye, Mr. West. It's like, why didn't they just stand there and watch to make sure it worked?
Did you ever see the movie Austin Powers?
Yeah, I did, actually. Quite recently, actually. I hadn't seen it before.
I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but it's with Dr. Evil. So Dr. Evil has a son, and I mean, obviously, it's mocking the Bond, not mocking. It's parodying the Bond films and everything. But
right.
He says, "Well, I guess they get Austin Powers. They got him tied up, and he wants to do this elaborate thing to pretty much have him obliterated." So the son says, "Why are you doing that? Let me just take him out right now." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have it be this contrived circumstance so that he might be able to escape." And then his son is getting all frustrated, and I think it was Seth Green. He's going, but I can just take it. He's like, but he's like, you will do what I say.
I can't remember if it was the second film. I saw that scene, but I don't know that I saw the movie or not.
But it's so true, because it's, I mean, they're calling it out, these TV shows and these movies. It's like they come with these elaborate plans. I love Batman from the 60s, but of course the same thing applies with when they'd have these contraptions that they're the arch villains contrive in order to take out, Batman and Robin. And it's the same thing, but that's the fun of the, the
right. And that's tongue in cheek, You're not supposed to take that seriously on any level, but
but it's fun.
But it's fun. And this show is fun too. It's the guest stars, I mean, on the show. It made me think watching it again. They call it comfort TV, the TV of that era.
Right.
But it's just like, where have all the entertainers gone?
Yeah.
The actors were all, they spoke so well. Every one of them enunciated, and it's like you could tell that they had a background in on stage or in theater, in radio, and it was a much different set of standards than we have now. The post method actors that all chew on everything, and they're like some schmo you would run into, on the front step somewhere. Some guy you talked. I don't know. I wouldn't talk to these guys, but you know what I mean. It's not like they have presence in the show, right. and they're not afraid to use.
Speak about presence now.
To dazzle you.
Hold that thought about presence. I just want to put Christian's comment up. And Christian is saying the show was good to Conrad, but it was the opportunity for Ross Martin to show off his acting skills. Yeah. I just want to elaborate on that. You talk about character actor. I mean, Ross Martin was even interviewed about it. If you think about it in terms of character, I mean, he did probably over 100 different types of characters throughout the run of the 4 seasons of the show. And all of them were very distinct and were very individual and had their own personalities. I mean, his style of acting was very, very incredible. And then you had, and Robert Conrad, he got his hands dirty. I mean, he got out there with the guys, and he was interviewed, and he even commented, I think it was more long after the show had been off the air, just saying that, he hung out with the stunt guys. I mean, those guys, it was essentially after the first season, they had this like round robin of guys that essentially it was like an acting, instead of being an acting troupe, it was like a stunt troupe, but some of them were actors.
Right.
You had Red West, for example, I mean, who was Elvis's bodyguard. I mean, you watch the episodes and you'll see it's the same guys appearing over and over again. And it was just done. They were like a well-oiled machine, and it was done so very well. But initially it didn't start out that way. It's just that, Robert Conrad had a stunt double and he had a stand-in, but it's just that it was slowing up things in regards to shooting in time, and he volunteered. Right. And then it kind of just went from there in the first season.
Yeah, it's like, can't we just shoot this thing? They didn't want to sit around and wait for them to coordinate with the stunt guys. So he said, just show me what to do. Yeah. So,
and he did it, and he did it well.
he did it very well. You had the two actors were so well contrasted. The two characters were well contrasted, but the actors were perfect. I mean, Conrad was the man of action. He always got right to the bottom of stuff and just dove head first into the thing. And Ross Martin was more, he was the gadgetry guy and did the disguises, and he had his own little subplots where he got to do his thing. At the beginning, he kind of sends West out and stays back on the train or whatever. It stays with the lab, or he goes off and does his. But then they kind of give him his own. It's not long before they're a team, and that's when the show really clicks. It's no longer the Jim West show with the side bits with Artemus. They're actually kind of equal.
They complement each other, and the original conception for the show was to essentially have just Jim West, but it I don't know. Hindsight is 20/20, obviously, but it's just that it really gelled well in regards to. It's like, I'll use it's like Kirk and Spock. You know what I mean? It's like the two together. It's a totally different dynamic. However, it's along that type of formula where you have the two individuals that work very well together, and it did work.
Early on, I was thinking, oh wow, what if Jim West were to fight Jim Kirk? But then, like after 2 episodes, I said, no, that must never happen, because Jim Kirk would so get beaten up. He'd get his shirt torn off. They'd be like the two shirtless guys. But you
know what's interesting? James T. West, because his middle name is T, and then James T. Kirk.
Yep.
Which I thought was kind of interesting.
Even though it didn't predate when they started. When did they start it?
This was the pilot was actually the pilot was actually shot in December of 1964. It was shot for I think about $620,000. So it was literally shot a month after The Cage was filmed for Star Trek. So literally, this show is coming up on its 60th anniversary this year with the filming of the pilot, which is Night of the Inferno, for those who want to check it out.
Just trying to figure out who could sue. Which could have sued which? for the T, the James T. But yeah, as actors, they were opposites too.
Yes.
Their styles were different, and as people, they were different. Robert Conrad grew up in Chicago, and he always felt like he was a School of Hard Knocks kind of guy. He grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, and he dropped out of school. He did wind up going to college, though, at a point to study drama. So somehow he got in there. But Ross, and he loved to hang out with the stuntmen and that sort of thing. Whereas Ross Martin, he was born in Poland. His parents were Jewish, and they came to New York in his first year, like right after he was born, I guess. So he grew up in the Bronx, and he knew how to speak different languages before he knew how to speak English. I mean, he knew Yiddish, he knew Polish, he could speak some Russian. Then he learned English, and then later on he picked up French and Italian and a number of other languages. He could play the violin. He graduated from law school. You know what I mean? So, and according to Robert Conrad, he on the weekends he'd be going to the theater and the opera while Robert Conrad was at the races or the fights or what have you. But they really clicked as in the show and as people, even though they complemented one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what really made it endearing and really made it fun to watch. And it's really a shame that it only went 4 seasons, but 4 seasons is definitely a good run. Christian commented, he said, the show was good to Conrad, but it was the opportunity for Ross Martin to show off his acting skills.
Yeah. And Martin had already been in a couple of, they had both been in movies, but Martin really kind of made a splash because he hooked up with Blake Edwards.
He was in The Great Race?
He was in The Great Race, but he was in the TV series called Mr. Lucky, where he played the sidekick. I'd never seen Mr. Lucky. He played the sidekick to John Vivian was the actor. But that, I think, just got the attention of Blake Edwards, obviously, because he worked with him. But then he was in the movie, The Experiment in Terror, with Glenn Ford and Lee Remick, I guess. And that really got him a lot of notice. He was nominated, actually, I think, for something for that. But I'm not sure about that. But then he was in The Great Race. Yeah, he wasn't the principal villain, but he had a sizable role, and he was a villainous character. As villainous as anybody could be in that movie. It's kind of a live action cartoon. But he did get nominated for an Emmy for Wild Wild West in the last season. So he did well for himself. I thought it interesting that they allowed him to kind of devise and plan and the makeup and his
initial character. He did a sketch of it, and then he went to the makeup makeup department, costume department, and they pretty much went from there with that. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and supposedly, they didn't know until he walked onto the set what he was going to look like for each of his characters. They kind of developed that level of trust.
Right. I thought it was interesting too, Ross, that he got his start. His first film was with George Powell. I think it was in the mid 50s.
Oh, yeah, Conquest of Space.
Yes,
yeah.
Conquest of Space.
Yeah, he wasn't the lead, but he was in it. Yeah.
He also did a One Step Beyond episode, which has been titled Alcoa Presents. For those, I think we've talked about that show out, a few times, which is kind of cool.
From our perspective now, it is funny how the zeitgeist kind of, we're aware of things we wouldn't even think about back. Well, we might have thought about it back in the, watching them in reruns in the 70s, and we would have like brushed it off or chuckled or not even really thought anything of it. But now we're immediately, it's like, oh my goodness, they have them in the Chinese makeup, or they have Boris Karloff and the shoe polish, that kind of thing, or a bunch of Sicilian actors playing Indians. But Ross Martin apparently did I don't know if I ever saw it. He did a TV movie of Charlie Chan. He plays Charlie Chan, and he directs the movie. And now I've got to hunt this thing down. I got to see this movie.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
It's like The Return of Charlie Chan or something. It was like 1973. So
now, in regards to going back to Robert Conrad, did you ever watch The Hawaiian Eye?
I never did. In fact, it was only when you were playing the theme music on the show where we kept getting shut down by YouTube or Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, you played the theme from Hawaiian Eye, but I'd never seen the show.
Gotcha.
And talk about playing different ethnicities. He played a half Hawaiian on the show.
Yes.
I had
Yeah.
never seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You saw it, though, right?
I've actually watched I think a couple episodes, 2
Oh,
episodes,
okay.
and he plays a detective in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and there's actually, if you go on YouTube too, there's an interview. I think he's doing like an interview with oh my god, Dick Clark, because Dick Clark had American Bandstand, and I believe, if I remember correctly, he was a singer also, Robert Conrad.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
He had some. He
that's in
recorded a
that.
little bit for Warner Brothers, and yeah, he had a singing career on the side.
So he did that as well too. Just going
Good
back to the
music also.
comments, Don's saying, I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts tonight, but must confess I could never get into the show. I love the colors, the cameras, and the opening sequence, but even now, Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., it just doesn't hold my attention. No, that's okay.
Cameos. Yeah, cameos. Yeah, it's funny because I don't want to like name names, but there's another one of our regulars out there said the same thing to me, and I guess just different things grab different people.
Absolutely. No.
I do wish that on occasion I do wish that they had taken it even further. Like I said, the concept, but some of the episodes really land, really satisfy. There were a couple that I could recommend, or a few I could recommend, if you want to see a quintessential Wild Wild West episode. But some of them are a little formula.
Oh, absolutely. Now, one thing I want to go back to, we were talking about presence, and we were talking about how a lot of the actors really were memorable. With that, I just want to say, in regards to Michael Dunn playing Dr. Magnolito Lovelace,
he's amazing. Yeah.
What a presence he had. And he just was so memorable, and he did such a wonderful job. And he originally was, I think he was contracted to do, I believe, 4 episodes per season. They wanted him to do, along with whatchamacallit, Phoebe, my goodness, Minuet, I think it was Phoebe, his
Phoebe Doran.
Phoebe Doran.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Phoebe Doran played Antoinette, and she was almost like an accomplice, but not that she. I'm probably not describing her very well, but the way he actually came upon being in this show was because Michael Garrison saw him and Phoebe performing their act, and was very taken with them, and felt that he would have been great. And from what I read, Michael Dunn was a little, was like a little skeptical, like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're saying this, but what happened was, that Monday morning call came through, and they wanted them, and the rest is history, because he did have such a strong presence, and he was so memorable, and they worked very well together. And unfortunately, she was only in, I believe, 6 episodes, because I guess something happened. She was like a very close friend from my understanding, but Michael Dunn was married, and then I guess there was, some kind of maybe jealousy or what have you.
Yeah. And the wife didn't want her on the show with him.
Yeah.
But the decades before Peter Dinklage, there was Michael Dunn. And it's amazing what he accomplished when he accomplished it. Because usually when you think about little people, you're thinking like Billy Barty. That's he was like the most visible, little person. And then you have somebody like Michael Dunn, who, the more you read about him and the more you see with him, what I was talking about with the guest stars and how they had presence and how they were entertainers. I mean, his diction, the way he carried himself. He was a stage actor. He was nominated for a Tony for Ballad of the Sad Cafe. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Ship of Fools for Best Supporting Actor before this show. And how he was discovered was, he was in an off-Broadway show with Phoebe Doran. And afterwards, they would go out and they'd stand outside the Plaza Hotel and they'd sing. They'd just informally just sing at the fountain. And they harmonized and they entertained, crowds would gather. And Roddy McDowall came along and he said, you really should do something with this because, people are loving it. So they formed a kind of a cabaret act, a nightclub act. And that's what they did. And that's what Michael Garrison saw. he saw how well they worked together. And he said, "Look, you've got to come on both of you have got to come on the show."
Yeah.
So yeah, you're watching this espionage plot, always outlandish, because even though he's a small person, he's got these most ludicrous, grandiose plans to take over blow up whole cities, or take over
the world,
take over the world, burn the United States. So he, but he. What was I saying right before that? Oh man, I blanked. But yeah, I mean, it's he was just such a hit with the audience. He just kind of so that's why as you say, they wanted him in.
And they were also always given the opportunity to sing in the episode, which was a nice.
Oh, that's it. They would have you'd have this plot, and then there'd be this digression. There'd just be the scene where it totally stops, and the two of them start singing or harmonizing or whatever, as James West kind of stands off to one side and waits. And that's the reason, because that's how they were discovered. They were singers. Boy, I got really sidetracked there, but that was the point, Roy. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it worked. It really, really flowed.
Yeah.
Now, Christian just said, listening to Ross talking about Wild Wild West, I want to see it again. Even I remember watching The Man from U.N.C.L.E. about 10 years ago. I couldn't believe how bad it aged. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they are time capsules.
Sure.
I must say that this was fun, though. As somebody commented here tonight, it never grabbed him personally.
Yeah, Don was saying about that.
And I read somewhere else a review where somebody said they loved it as a kid, and they went back and watched it and couldn't believe how formulaic it was, how they're spoiled by the television they've seen since, and it was so, you could tell what was going to happen every episode. Of course you can. That's
the fun of it. And for me personally, I enjoy that. And again, we've talked about this on the show, a lot. It's just that every decade has its tone in regards to the way shows were written, directed, and executed in that sense. And if you look at something from the 60s, it's different than the 70s, which is different than the 80s, and so on. And it's just the way it goes about it. But to me, I can watch these and I'm only going to touch upon this once. And if you want to talk about it, or if you want to bring it up, you can too, Ross. But this is just going to be my comment to it, because I was very excited in 1979, 1980, 1979, I'll say the first time, not so much in 1980, but I was very excited in 1979 when they did the Wild Wild West Revisited, or announced they were going to be doing it, because I thought this is going to be great.
Oh, the TV movie.
And they did the 2 TV movies. And now I'm sorry.
Couldn't recapture the no. Well, you know what, the TV has changed. You know what I mean? But by that point,
right, and that ties into what I'm saying about the tone, the way things are
right
done, and that unfortunately,
everything
thing with that.
Nothing looks sharp anymore. I mean, it starts to look cheap, like a TV movie, and you could deceive it. Even I know he died very young, Michael Dunn,
and he's been gone 51 years.
Yeah,
51 years.
But even within the show itself, by the 4th season, there was this weird digression where Ross Martin was gone for, they thought he'd be gone for 5 episodes while he recuperated from the heart attack. But it turned out he was gone for, I don't know what it was, 7 or 9 episodes. I think 9 episods. But during that time, they were messing with James West's hair. He started getting like the wet look or something. He started getting the wings on his head, and it's like, what's going on? It's the 70s suddenly. Like before it was the early 60s. Now suddenly it's the 70s.
Yeah.
Thank goodness they cleaned him up a little bit before the end of the season. But there was that. Oh yeah, and then they started playing that weird kind of. They had like rock on the soundtrack, or it was like you expected the Monkees to show up. It was like that era. They started playing this stuff as the underscore, and it just didn't suit the show at all.
It's funny because you can be watching the episodes, and here's the thing too. A lot of these episodes, they obviously, the way they were filmed, the production order was different from the broadcast order.
Yeah.
So if you're watching 3rd season episodes, I think it was the latter part of the 3rd season. He's got kind of like a pompadour type cut, haircut, kind of like,
aggressive pompadour.
And then the next thing you know, it's a different scene, and he's got his hair parted on the side, and it's like you're looking at him, you're thinking, wait a minute, does he look different? What's going? And it's okay. He's combing his hair differently, but then what it is they're interchanging the scenes. So you might see that him in one scene, and then in the next scene, it's back to the Pompadour, and it's kind of the continuity was not going on during the filming. And then what happened was there was an episode. It was, which we'll talk about, is the Night of the Fugitives, and that episode is the episode that is known for when essentially Robert Conrad almost got killed because it was a stunt that went wrong. And that was actually shot. It was supposed to be a latter third season episode, and then they pushed it to the fourth season.
Right.
But we'll talk about that a little later.
Because he leapt for a chandelier from a staircase, and apparently it was 12 feet off the ground. And when he went to swing, he said he didn't chalk up right.
Right.
That's what he says, but he fell and he cracked his skull. So,
and I guess the guy that would have been there, the stunt supervisor, was not there, and the extra precautions were not checked. And if he had been there, he even said the accident would have happened. But
so he still fought lustily in the fourth season, but he didn't do any more of those 12-foot jumps like he was doing in the first 3 seasons.
He was. What did they say? He wasn't allowed to be more than 5 feet off the ground, I guess.
He was amazing in that show. I can't believe he did some of the stuff he did in real time. You know, there was none of that cutting away or anything.
No, not at all.
He went for it.
John commented and said, I'm never spoiled by today's TV. I'm spoiled by yesterday's TV. And then he said, even Odd Couple second season, Tony Randall had a bit longer hair and longer sideburns. The 70s had landed. He went back to shorter hair at the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Let me see here. He also
and it shouldn't bother us with a period series, but it's funny. Every time we go back and examine something historical, it picks up something of our own time, no matter what.
Well, especially in those years, because those years, essentially, I mean, the 60s transitioning into the 70s, that was huge, especially around 1969, 70, 71, 72. There's a big transition that was going on in that period, because you were really, especially in appearance. I mean,
but do you think like Gregory Peck or Errol Flynn? Do you think any cowboys look like Errol Flynn?
Well,
you know what I mean? You had cowboys in the 30s, you had cowboys in the 50s. They were all like Glenn Ford, and in the 60s they started picking up the 60s stuff. I don't know. I guess they all had sideburns probably back in the 1870s, so why not? But he was cleaner cut in the earlier episodes, and they gave him like such a trim, tailored suit. He almost looked like a matador. He had that short jacket. I mean, they really wanted to show off his physique. It's like Robert Conrad's sex appeal. Tune in for Wild Wild West with Robert Conrad's body is what it was.
Well, talking about all that stuff in regards to, I mean, like the gadgets and everything. Now, I'm going to focus on the pilot episode where we're introduced to James West. Now, the pilot is in regards to the dynamics is a little bit different, but it's essentially the same. But he essentially is almost like a deserter, and they're trying to smuggle him in, but trying to get to the heart of what's going on in the West, because they're afraid it's going to have a huge impact on the States. And this is where we're introduced to his gadgets in the train, which is so cool. I mean,
the train,
especially when he goes into the car, and then he's putting on he's got that gun that comes out through his sleeve,
the Derringer, right?
Yes. Yeah. He's got the knife that's in that special pocket. He's got the key, the what do they call it? Skeleton key that can open anything, any lock.
He's got the knife in the boot.
The boots.
And he's got the thing in the heel all the time.
Right.
He's got all kinds of stuff going on. Whatever Artemus doesn't rig up for that week. Like the special adhesive that only holds for 10 seconds or something like that. What's he going to use that for? And immediately as the episode gets to the climax, that's what the 10-second adhesive is going to be for.
Exactly. It was just really, really cool.
But in the pilot, they kind of set him up as like a dandy at the beginning. You know what I mean? He's always going to perform these missions. We actually see President Grant in the pilot.
Yes, and
we see him a couple of times throughout this series. But he's actually sent on the mission by
And there is, just to let our viewers know, there are so many connections to Star Trek in this. I mean, we like to say all roads lead to Star Trek. There are so many connections throughout this whole series. I mean, I was just going with the pilot here because you have James Gregory who's playing Ulysses S. Grant,
and you knew immediately from the voice. Everybody knows this guy's voice.
Oh yeah, and he's done a ton of work as well. But he was Dr. Tristan Adams in Dagger of the Mind, Star Trek first season episode. But anyway, there's that connection. Ralph Sinensky, who's been on the show and directed the Star Trek episodes, he directed, I believe, at least 2, if not more. And I apologize for not knowing the exact amount, but he was a director on this series. In fact, when Marlon Mason was on the show, I got to talk to Ralph on prior to her coming on, and he was just talking about his involvement with this series. Fred Freiberger was a producer of this series also.
The reviled Fred Freiberger.
Yeah, everybody knows him from Space 1999 for the second season, but he also was the third, directed. He was the producer for the last season of Star Trek. So there's that connection there.
But instead of destroying this show, they got rid of him.
Nice, Ross.
Well, they got rid of him early. He was on the early side. They got rid of him.
Yeah, he was. And
so he didn't come in at the end, in other words.
Gene L. Kuhn, who was a producer on the original Star Trek, he was a producer on this show as well. Yeah. This show had five producers. In fact, I think Michael Garrison was the creator of this show, and he almost got himself knocked. They almost threw him out, but he owned 40% of the show, and then they had him, and then they wound up bringing him back.
Yeah. So he saw it through, but some of the directors too. I saw a few familiar names. Richard Donner directed one of the episodes. Yeah, Richard Donner. All of these guys just move from show to show to show. They do Gilligan's Island. They do this. They go over and do a Western or Mission Impossible. It's just like you'd always see the same name. Same thing with the actors. You're talking about James Gregory. He just moved from show to show to show.
It was like a repertoire of now. So Michael Garrison was involved in the first episodes 1 through 28. Collier Young episodes 5, 9, and 15. Fred Freiberger was involved in episodes 2 through 4, 6 through 8, 10 through 13. John Mantley, episodes 14 and 16 through 21. And then Gene L. Kuhn did episodes 22 through 27. And essentially, that's all in the first season. Can you imagine having that many different producers in a series? I mean, the producer really is helping to set the tone. And the fact that you had the creator of the series was kind of pushed aside, that in itself is scary. And then sadly, he had an accident in the second season where he slipped and he fell down a flight of steps and he died.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Lansbury, everybody knows him. I believe he was the head of CBS at the time. And then
he was
Angela Lansbury's brother.
Yeah, brother of Angela Lansbury, right?
Yeah, took over.
There's so many guest stars in the television, in the series that you would recognize. I mean, there were a lot also that you would know from other episodic television, but names that we would know now, like Sammy Davis Jr. was in it, and Victor Buono, and Richard Pryor, and who were some of the others? Ricardo Montalban. He was excellent. He was one of the better guest stars. But talk about somebody who really dominated, really had presence, and really dominated the screen. That was a really strange episode. That was like they didn't mind. They took the Western and they would play with going into different dimensions. Or there's one where Dr. Lovelace shrinks James West to the size of a mouse.
Yes.
These are all like concepts. I remember when Seinfeld was on, when they were talking about doing a 10th season, they canceled it, or they decided to end on episode 9. I remember Jerry Seinfeld at some point saying, we're starting to get into things like we'll do an episode with like a 6-inch Kramer or something like that. So we knew it was time to pull the plug. Well, Wild West didn't pull the plug. He said, we're going to do a 3-inch James West. That was a fun episode.
that was entertaining. Jerry said, speaking of Star Trek, wasn't there a wink of an eye type episode? Yes, there was. There absolutely was. And that was actually a good episode of a fun episode of the Wild Wild West. And that's where that doctor is, he's accelerated. He has that formula.
Oh my God. That was my favorite episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my favorite. That was so great. I said, this show is the best. I mean, that was really well. The one before that I really liked too. That was like one that would get me canceled immediately, or get them canceled immediately, because everybody's in the Asian makeup, or Ross Martin's in the Asian makeup. The one that's in Chinatown.
Yes.
And they have all the Indiana Jones stuff with the walls closing in and floors dropping out, and had all the cliffhanger stuff. But it was very Fu Manchu. But then that one came right after. And that was a great episode. I just, they were, because they were moving at a different rate of speed than everybody else, and you couldn't see them when they were moving faster. Yeah, so it was really cleverly done. And they took a lot of inspiration from stories by H.G. Wells and Jules Verne. So it's not like it's the first time they did some of this stuff, but.
And that's the overlap, though. That's the connection to, to that Trek episode. What did it say here?
And that also might have been the episode where they rigged up the kind of the springboard, wasn't it? Where he jumped on the one end and so he's able to get James West up to the window on the second floor.
Yes, yes, he propels him up.
Yeah, so they're really starting to work as a team in that one, really convincingly. That might have been my favorite of all the episodes. Night of the Flaming Ghost, I think it was called.
And that's the other thing I wanted to point out, is that every episode of the Wild Wild West was always the night of blank, the night of whatever. Right. And then there was the one episode that there was an exception, and this was in the first season. It was episode 5. Instead of the night, it was night of. So...
Well, I hasten to add also, even though we had all this time, I didn't watch all the episodes. I only saw like 16 of them or something like that for this.
That's a pretty good amount.
Yeah, it was more than I thought I'd get. Oh, no, it was more than that. Actually, wait a minute. 20, probably saw 26 episodes.
Did you really, Ross?
Yeah, because I found like a top 20 favorite episodes, and it turned out my favorites were not the same as that list. So, because the last time you postponed, I went back and watched even more. Every time it got postponed, I go and watch more. And I was curious about when Ross Martin had the heart attack. Right. They would bring in other actors to kind of play that role. They didn't play Artemis, but they played a similar function.
Alan Hale Jr. was brought in.
Right.
William Charlotte was brought in.
Right.
Just to name him a couple.
Did you see the one with Alan Hale Jr.? Did you watch that one?
I have seen that episode. I just haven't seen it recently. Yeah,
because there were some, Gilligan's Island Easter eggs in that show. Because Jim Backus also has a part, and there's a joke. The joke at the end of the show was a Gilligan's Island joke, and they even played the theme from Gilligan's Island after he makes the joke, just to make sure you get it. Yeah, the skipper. I have to say though, again, it's like these people were entertainers. They dominated the screen. You say what you want about Alan Hale Jr. When he's on screen, you're not looking at anybody else.
No, he had presence. And the other thing, too, is CBS owned it. So they also filmed at the CBS. It was filmed at CBS Studios. What was it? Studio City is where that was filmed. And that's the same place where they filmed Gilligan's Island. So that's why they actually could do what they did with that. And they had fun with it, which I thought that was a nice nod.
Yeah. And he was the only one of the sidekicks that they didn't put in a disguise. I guess they figured there's no way that Alan Hale Jr. was going to be.
Well, no, to be fair, though, now in the Night of the Inferno, the pilot, talking about disguises and everything, Victor Bono, who is huge.
Right, that's true.
In fact, Robert Conrad, Wes says, he looks at him and he kind of smirks and he says, "Aren't you a bit large for a Chinaman?" I mean, he's right how it says it.
I know, which I thought was hilarious because that's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching it. Well, I knew it was Victor Bono for one thing, but that's one though where it's there are a couple of twists in the show. He's not what he seems.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but the other two guys that they got to replace him, one was, as you said, William Shallert,
Yep.
who was the Patty Duke show. He was the father of Patty
Father.
Duke, but he's in everything. You'll recognize him immediately when you see him, even if you don't know his name. He was also the father in Nancy Drew in
Yes,
the 70s.
he was. And he was also in Star Trek. He played Niels Barris. Or,
the Tribbles.
He was in Trouble with Tribbles.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So he was in a lot of. I mean, he's just, again, it's the circuit. It's like Paul Lynde that's being in every episode of everything.
He was also, if you ever watched Get Smart, he was also he was the old. He was made up to be very old. And he talked like this. What are you talking about? Sonny? And I can't think of the character that he played, but he was always falling over and he wouldn't be able to hear. And he was actually at Chiller convention probably 15 years ago. And
wow.
A lot of these people I saw, and I can kick myself that I did not get their autograph and I did not meet up with them, because it's the same story that would always happen. I'd get there and I'd be like, oh yeah. And then it's like, I'd see them and I'd smile and then walk past them and then that would be it. And it's
who would ever think that you want to get his autograph? And then later you go, wow, I should have gotten his autograph. He's like living history. This guy had connections to everything.
Everything. He was in so much, and he was good at what he did. I mean, he was, truly a character actor, and he played it off. He was excellent.
Yeah. I mean, he was, as far as that sidekick went, he was no Ross Martin. He didn't have the same chemistry, but it is funny that all of those shows always end. It got to the point where they fell into the groove where every show ended with them with the the chicks in the
car.
They're in the train with the beautiful women, the denouement where they're talking about, this happened. You want to go out to dinner or whatever, and they wink at each other.
Well, in the first episode, the pilot, Suzanne Plachette was the guest vixen,
right?
Say, and she's giving James a kiss and everything, and then what Ross Martin does, he pulls down the shade.
Right. But what I was going to say is it really didn't work with William Shallert. Like, this guy is not a ladies' man.
No.
But it is, it was a classical music guy, though. I'm about to say something that nobody in the audience is going to care about. But he actually performed Ode to Napoleon in the presence of the composer Arnold Schoenberg for his 75th birthday. He was the narrator in the performance in Los Angeles before the composer. And I thought, wow, William Shallert, like, knew Schoenberg. He met Schoenberg.
Who would have known, right, Ross?
Who would have known? It's. But the other guy was Charles Aidman.
Yes. Now he was the one that did. I think he did at least 4 episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
And he was the one that was most like Ross
Artemus,
Martin, the character, except he was much taller than. Not Ross much taller, but he was obviously taller. Than because Robert Conrad and Ross Martin were, at least when they were filmed, they were kind of the same size, but this guy was taller than Robert Conrad. But obviously he was doing a Ross Martin impression. He said when he came on, he was under the impression, they led him to believe they were going to write new scripts and come up with a kind of a new, fresh character for him. But basically what they did is they went through and crossed out Artemis's name and wrote in his character's name. So he's the one that did all those disguises for those episodes.
Right. Or
showed up in the disguises, I should say.
Christian just commented and said, Victor Bono, another brilliant actor, gone too soon. Interesting enough about him, I could not believe his age. I mean, he was only 42 when he passed away, and it was in the 70s. When he was doing King Tut in Batman, he was like literally in his late 20s. I mean, there's a guy that, looked so much older. I mean, no offense to him. I mean, he was very tall, but also he was very big. Yeah. And it just, I think one of the last times I saw him in something, believe it or not, was an episode of, if anybody remembers the television series Alice. Do you remember that show, Ross? With Lavin? With
Mel Tabak, or what's it, Vic Tabak?
Vic Tabak, yes. Yeah. He played somebody, I think, that came into the diner, and then he winds up dying in the diner, and I think they were worried that it was the food that killed him, but it wasn't. But he was brilliant at what he did, but gone too soon, as he was saying. John actually said, The Hague said that he was in 2 episodes of The Odd Couple as well. John also said, "Yeah, Roy, I wish I would have gotten all the Voyage to Bomb Sea actors at Chiller, and alas, never did." Yeah, I actually do have David Hedison's autograph. David Hedison. I'm digressing. Sorry, folks, but David Hedison played Captain Lee Crane for the folks out there who ever watched are not familiar with Voyage to Bomb the Sea. And I always like to tell this story. Like when I went to Chiller with Ryan, and he met him. And Ryan, when he was very young, looked a lot like Harry Potter because he had the round glasses. And David Hedison was very nice to Ryan. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he goes, "Is your name Harry?" And Ryan's like, "My name." He goes, "No, it's not Harry. It's Ryan." He goes, "Did anybody ever tell you look like Harry Potter?" And he just was like, "No." Well, he was being really shy. So then when we walked away, he goes, I said, "Nice meeting you." And he goes, "Nice meeting you." And he goes, "Nice meeting you too, Harry." And he goes, "I'm not Harry." And that always stuck with me. It was just a cute story.
Yanking his chain.
Sherry saying, "You would think I was a pod if I didn't ask. Any shower scenes?" I watched this when I was young and had a crush on Artemis.
There you go. Crush on Artie.
Yeah.
Yeah, were there any shower scenes in this?
No, not that I'm aware of. Not at least not on the train.
Yeah, there might have been one where you could hear a shower, you know, where he was in the other room, but I can't remember at the moment. There was there were underwater scenes.
Oh, here's one for you, Ross, from Matt.
Selling the pogs. Yeah, with the pogs. There you go. Yeah.
Don said he did do some Perry Mason.
Okay.
And let me see. The Hague is saying Odd Couple. He had completely white hair, looked way older.
Which one, Victor Buono? You think?
Yeah. Are you talking about? Are you talking about Victor Buono, John? Christian said he played a devil in the horror film The Evil. He must be. He must be Victor Buono.
Okay.
So there you go. Yeah.
There was one with the Kraken. Did you see that one? King Tut, right? Did you see the one with the? Where they had the. There's a sea monster in San Francisco, I think it is, and of course, Ross Martin disguises himself as, or Artemis disguises himself as a Portuguese fisherman, because why wouldn't he? But anyway, there's one with the Kraken, except they don't call him the Kraken, they call him the Kraken.
Oh,
and they're talking about Uranus, and I said, oh man, you know why they're calling it the Kraken, because as soon as you get the Kraken and Uranus in the same episode, you know what went on set there. They lost so much footage with the quips about Kraken Uranus.
Oh my God, Ross.
No, it's got to be. I didn't see anything written up about it, but I guarantee that's why they call it the Kraken, because nobody calls that monster the Kraken.
Probably not.
I mean, granted, it's Norwegian, but I mean, they would have known it was Kraken, or Kraken, the Kraken.
Bring out the Kraken.
Oh, and Ted Knight's in that one too.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Ted Knight? Oh, wow.
Ted Knight is the super villain.
Ted Knight with the very deep voice.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It was very James Bond, the climax of that one.
You said love The Odd Couple. And yes, Victor Buono is what John is saying. Yeah. And Matt's saying, "Here come the suits." Yeah.
I meant Kraken Uranus.
The suits actually got some time off over the last 6 or so weeks. They were like, "What the heck, man? We can actually have some weekends off."
I'm sorry that Robert Conrad's no longer around, that I can't ask him that question. Because I'm sure it's the case. They told us after they were going to shut us down for the violence, they told us we had to pronounce it Kraken.
One of the comments he made too was that I guess they were saying that maybe he was kind of getting leery towards the end, and he was saying that maybe he was spending a lot of time with the stunt people. He really wasn't having, I'll say, the camaraderie with the actors. And because he talked about his career too, really in regards to helping further develop his acting credentials. Did you ever see The Sentinel that he was in? That was in,
absolutely. Yeah, the one from the 70s.
70s.
Yeah, with Chris Sarandon, I think, was in it, and Burgess was in it. Burgess Meredith. Jeff Goldblum actually is in that movie. I think it's before people really. I think he has like I don't think anybody knew who he was yet. You know, he was
Okay.
still kind of in that Death Wish phase where people might have recognized his face, but or what was the other one he was in back then? It was the Robert Altman Nashville. You know what I mean? He was just kind of a face, but he's got a part in that. By what? I digress. Go ahead.
That's okay. Christian said John Carradine. No, I remember reading that he really felt that was an example of what his better work in regards to.
Who are we talking about?
Oh, Robert Conrad.
Robert Conrad was in the Sentinel?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
The horror movie?
No, the no. It was.
We're talking about two different.
Yeah, we're talking
about two different things. That's why I asked you if we were talking about the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Never mind. I thought you were talking about the movie.
No.
Movie. Nah, the hell with it.
Yeah, it came out. I think it was It was 78, 79.
No, it's okay. You can cut that part out.
No, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
He did a man. Do you remember him doing A Man Called Sloan? That was it was a short-lived television series. That was in 79.
Well, I remember Baba Black Sheep or
Baba Black Sheep was another one that was.
Yeah, and of course the Ever Ready.
Oh, I was so tempted to show a YouTube link or even throw a photo up for that, because he was on all the commercials for that. They were always recycling those commercials. I dare you to.
Yeah, and they would parody it. It was one of those commercials everybody remembered, so it got parodied forever. Come on, I dare you, and knock it off. And do you remember Battle of the Network Stars? Of course you do.
Of course I do. In
remember
fact,
he was always the captain of the whatever network and the NBC team or something. Centennial. He was in Centennial, right?
Centennial. That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
With William Atherton was in it too.
Yeah. What did I say? Oh, I'm sorry, Ross. I said Centennial. My bad.
That would have been great if they had like a haunted apartment in the Centennial. That would have livened it up.
But that's what he was commenting on as far as his.
Okay. It was the Royism.
It was, yeah. There you go. Did you miss it, Ross?
It was
Did you miss the Royism after 6 or 7 weeks?
There was a little camaraderie.
Is that the word you're trying to say? Camaraderie.
Thank you. I lost my camaraderie after 6 weeks. I'm a little rusty. Yeah.
I'm a little rusty too. Don't worry.
I can't speak fluent Roy anymore.
It's been too long, Ross.
You don't use it, you lose it.
Knock it off, Ross. I dare you.
The Ever Ready.
It's good to laugh.
Man.
Oh boy, yeah. Baba. Yeah, did you watch Baba Black Sheep?
I remember when it was on, and I think it was in syndication when I saw it. Yeah, I was not a religious viewer of it. I was not a big fan. If it was on, I'd watch it sometimes.
Yeah,
I remember when it was on, but not my era. Yeah.
No, it was. Yeah, it was always on. I think it was on Channel 17. The Hague would know. He'll tell us. But it was. Yeah, I mean, he had. It was another show that he did too. He had in the 80s, and it was. Oh my God, I think it was. He actually shot it with his sons too, and I'm trying to think of what it was called. The Sierras, or it was.
Oh right. I read it. I don't remember the show, but I read that. Right.
High Mountain Rangers is what it was. Yeah, Jesse Hawks. It was like 86, 87 that they shot that.
Okay.
But, yeah. But yeah, the Ever Ready commercials were really funny though. They were good. But hey, he made a name for himself with that stuff, so it was good stuff.
Did you have a favorite episode of the ones that you watched? Or I mean, even if you can't remember the titles, can you remember who was in it? Or
I very much enjoyed the episode where he was accelerated, the one that you were talking about. Because
good. You did watch that one. Yeah.
I did watch it, and I very much enjoyed it. I enjoyed the one too with the
Ricardo Montalban. Okay.
Yes. Well, no, that's not the one I was going to say. I enjoyed that one too. That was a time travel episode, which was kind of cool because
Yeah.
with Ricardo Montalban especially, and not to give anything away, but he's like acting as though he's this magician. And at the
Oh.
very beginning, what happens is he makes Artemis disappear, and then James
Not to give anything away.
No, I'm not going to give it away. He's waiting for him to reappear, and he doesn't reappear. And then he hears his voice, and he's going, James, and he looks up and he goes, Artemis, and then it goes from there. But it's very well done, and of course, anything, excuse me, anything Ricardo does is amazing, and it employs a lot of time travel. The other episode I was going to talk about was where they have the Venetians that are coming down supposedly in the flying saucer.
I didn't see that one. Is that the one where they have to fuel the ships with the gold or whatever it is?
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to see that, but I haven't gotten to see it yet. Okay, so it's worth seeing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's and he check it out. I don't want to give it away. Check it out. Excuse me.
Did you see the one with Loveless and the paintings?
Yes, that's another excellent episode.
There's another one where it kind of bends your mind a little bit. It's like, what are they doing in this episode?
Yeah, going into the paintings.
Going into the paintings. I know. It's like, what? Little Anthony's going to wish him into the cornfield.
Exactly. It has that type of element, which is done very, very well. But yeah, there's so many, and a lot of the things. Did you come across any episodes where he's in a carriage, and then what happens is the carriage like seals, and then he can't get out, and then they knock him out? It's like he's always falling into that type of trap. It's like it happens on repetitively.
Did you see the one with John Aston? They did that in that one where he plays the Russian.
No, I did not see that one.
Yeah, I watched it by mistake. But it was because I thought I was watching another episode because I was trying to go through that 20 episode list.
Right.
But it was he did get locked up in the carriage and had to get out of it again. So
let me ask you a question. What was your favorite episode, Ross?
Well, I think my favorite of the ones that I saw was the one with the Night of the Flaming Ghost, where they were moving at the different rate of speed than everyone else. But I also like the Night of the Dragon. Was it Night of the Dragon? The Night the Dragon Screamed. That was the really politically incorrect one that was set in Chinatown.
Right.
That had all the Indiana Jones stuff in it. I liked the ones I saw with Loveless, except there was one that was kind of like I thought there would be more to it than. After seeing several with him that were so good, the one that I remembered really well was the one where he was going to blow up the town, where they're on the clock tower.
Yes.
Did you see that one?
Yes.
It was one of the early ones. It might have been the third episode or something. That one I remembered everything about it for some reason. But having seen so many of the episodes when I was a kid, I was surprised by how few that I actually had remembered when rewatching. I mean, I probably didn't watch some of the same ones that I saw when I was a kid, but that one I remember really well. Richard Keel, was a sidekick. Did we mention that earlier?
We did not talk about Richard Keel, and that was Dr. Lovelace's
his henchman. Yeah.
Henchman, and of course he was known later on in the James Bond movie The Spy Who Loved Me, as well as Moonraker, playing Jaws.
Playing Jaws, right? Which is a nice little irony because the series was inspired in part by James Bond. So. And in fact, what we didn't mention was that Garrison, is that his name? Michael Garrison?
Michael Garrison
was in on the ground floor. He wanted to make, he had the rights to make
he bought the rights
Royale as a movie.
Yep.
It was a movie, but they couldn't get the financial backing.
They couldn't get the backing. Then his partner died. And then what happened, his wife, the wife of the partner, sold the rights, and then he wound up selling the rights. And this was it's in the 1950s.
Mid-50s.
Yeah.
So he could have been on the ground floor of James Bond.
Yeah.
So instead he did the Bond knock. It's kind of like George Lucas with Star Wars wanting to do Flash Gordon, and he couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon, so he made Star Wars. Well, that's what happened with Wild Wild West. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry if I dragged you off course with that. We're talking about Richard Keel as Voltaire, Lovelace's sidekick or henchman.
His henchman.
There's so many henchmen in this thing where they have steel legs or iron arms, or it's very, very, very Bond.
Did I tell you that I actually met Richard Keel?
No. Was that a chiller thing or
It
something?
was a chiller. It was probably, it had to be, he's been gone for at least over 10 years. It was probably about 15 years ago. He was there with his wife.
Yeah.
Very soft spoken, very nice. She was very nice. And yeah, he was a big guy.
Yeah.
He was very pleasant. And somewhere I've got my photo with him. And yeah.
It'd be fun to see him. Yeah.
I have to find that. And then it's a physical photo. It's not a digital photo.
Right.
Now, Jeff Rubel's commenting, and he's actually commenting on the episode we were talking about. This is the one with Ricardo Montalban. He said,
right.
I like the other time travel one where a guy who had lost his legs in Civil War planned to go back in time and stop it from happening. He does, but then
spoiler.
But
yeah, it was very Twilight Zone, that kind of twist. Yeah.
Very.
They should have gotten Burgess Meredith to play him. Oh, Burgess Meredith's in one of them too, of course.
The Hakes at the Clock Tower episode where Kurt Russell was a sniper.
Yeah.
Christian said the night of thing is funny. It was a formula like in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Yes, it was. You're absolutely right about that, Christian.
Right.
Because it was like the Stratus affair or whatever.
Right.
John said he met him at Chiller. Also, he sat in a big, comfy chair due to his stature. Yeah, exactly. He was using a cane to walk at the time. Yeah, a lot of the guests that were in the show, just to name some of the lists I wrote off: Ed Asner, Yvonne Craig, Robert Duvall. Robert Duvall did a lot of episodic TV in the 60s before he jumped to movies. Yeah. Boris Karloff, Harvey Korman is also.
Oh, I saw that one too. Of course, Harvey Korman.
Yep.
Apparently, I didn't realize I'm just going to interrupt here. Apparently the Carol Burnett show was already on at that point. I didn't even realize it had started that early because I was watching first run episodes of it when I was a kid.
I think Carol Burnett was like 68, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. But I didn't realize that I was so young, because it had run for a while. It was still first run when I was watching it. But, of course, as soon as they get anybody with the German accent or whatever, they have to get Harvey Korman to do this. So he's playing it straight. But because of his association with the Carol Burnett show, it's like every time he would say his lines, everybody would just bust out laughing, and they would have to do another take because they thought Harvey was. They just kept picturing with the Tim Conway. But go ahead, continue.
No, it's okay. Excuse me, I got the GERS.
Yeah.
Robert Loggia, Ida Lupino.
Robert Loggia.
Loggia. He did a lot of episodic TV before. A lot of folks will remember him from the movie Big. He was the department store owner.
Yeah, he was in a lot of movies too. Yeah.
Susan Oliver, if you remember, a lot of folks will know her from the Star Trek fans from The Cage, playing Vina. She was she did a lot of episodic television. William Wyndham, Carol O'Connor, before he became, was known for Archie Bunker and All in the Family. There's an episode of Voyage to Bomb the Sea that he actually did that stands out. It was their Christmas episode, but a lot of actors, a lot of talent from back in the day.
Yeah, he's in Point Blank with Lee Marvin, if I remember correctly, the John Borman movie.
Yep. Yes. Martin Landau did. Yes. Thank you, Jeff. Martin Landau did a episode of Wild Wild West also. So yes. And yes, John, I agree. She died way too young. And let me see.
Carol Burnett. Yeah.
Carol Burnett. Yeah, maybe it did start in 67. I was thinking it started in 68, but that went right into the 70s. I mean, and I remember watching that. The one thing was Lyle Wagner wound up leaving, I think, after maybe 4 seasons because he was really trying to break into, serious acting.
Into Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Did Wonder Woman.
It's like, really? You left Carol Burnett to be in Wonder Woman? Well, I guess I could see that. But anyway.
Yeah, Red Fox, Matt's saying.
Red Fox wasn't. Oh, or is he just saying that era? Because Red Fox was.
No, he said funny how you never see Red Fox on any of these.
Oh, these episodes. Only on his own show.
Only on his own. Sanford and Son. Burnett did a wonderful Twilight Zone episode. Yeah, I'll have to go back and check that out. I think I forgot about that. Yeah, great comments, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but again, a lot of folks. I learned this week and that Gunsmoke ended in 75. Yeah, Gunsmoke was on for I think 25 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. About 20 years. It was a
yeah, it was
record
crazy.
substance. Yep, it was. So true.
I mean, of course, the soap operas all go on forever, but
Well, yeah, I don't
but
love that.
those don't count.
They don't count.
Yeah, or news shows. They don't
But
count either.
yeah, I love this show. I couldn't get enough of this show when it was on, and yeah, it
We didn't
was,
talk about the title sequence.
yes, and that was let me go back
The opener.
because here we go. Everybody remembers this, and this was very well done. Now, when they did the pilot, it was in black and white. Now, the difference was looking at that. What they would do is after the end of an act, they would take the live action and they would animate it, and it would be one of the squares that was a part of the original title. And what they would do is they would work their way around until the end of the episode. Now, in the pilot episode, in this sequence, this was the only time that essentially the hero, the gunslinger, we'll say, in the middle, is replaced. In all the subsequent episodes after the pilot, he always remains and he's always there.
Yeah.
The one thing that changed from the first season to the second season is there's a woman that you can see that's in the lower right hand corner.
Yeah.
What happens is when the title sequence is occurring and they're going through it, she actually is, the hero is bringing her towards him, and what happens is she pulls out a knife and then he gives her a sock and knocks her down, and that's well in the second season on. In the first season, she just falls down, and
he gives her a kiss, is what it is, and she swoons. She falls into a swoon. So like, which is worse? You know what I mean? But obviously the kiss is preferable. But as the show is coming under more and more scrutiny for violence, they change that to him punching out the woman in the opening credits, which, and as you were saying, what happens is with every cliffhanger, as they get to a bumper at the commercial,
right?
As they're in some kind of peril, they take a still from that, and then they put it here on the open, like in the upper left there. They've got
it morphs into the image of the drawn image,
and they put it there, and then they go to commercial, and every time they'll fill it in. But at the beginning of the show, as if you've seen the show, you never forget it. But on the lower left, you've got the bandito robbing the bank, and you've got the guy on the upper right who's the card sharp, and he pulls the ace out of his boot or whatever. And Jim West, who we assume is Jim West because it looks nothing like him, the cowboy, is constantly like knocking these guys out or righting the wrongs as this is going on. The guy on the upper left pulls the gun on him, and he puts up his hand, and the Derringer comes out and he shoots him. And then on the bottom right, she has I think a parasol or something. I can't remember. Anyway, she's trying to stab him in the back, and he grabs her and kisses her, and she falls into the swoon until the second season. Then he punches her out for the rest of the
series,
the run of the show.
Yeah,
as they're telling him to cut down on the violence, he's punching the woman out in the opening credits. Popeye. You remember the well, of course you know who Popeye is. For the comic strip, when Popeye was first out in the newspapers, it was criticized for being too violent. It just because he would escalate. Popeye was always doing stuff, and he was punching women and doing all kinds of stuff. And finally, the newspaper said, "Look, you can't have Popeye doing this stuff. He's got to clean up his act." So what he did was he toned Popeye down a little bit, but he invented Seeger, the artist, invented Poop Deck Pappy. So Poop Deck Pappy would come in and punch out the woman, and that's how he subverted the censorship of the Popeye, because Popeye wasn't that bad. It's his dad. It's Poop Deck Pappy. He's the bad one. He's the id. But anyway. Oh, and by the way, the animation was done by Fritz Frayling, who did the Pink Panther.
The Pink Panther, and there's the tie-in with that we were talking earlier. Take care, Eva. Thanks for joining. Glad you enjoyed the show.
Take care. Thanks for joining us tonight on a Sunday.
And John saying Popeye was not violent. His world was.
Yeah, exactly. He was just drawn that way.
He was just drawn that way.
He's not violent.
Matt said in the 70s, It's the 70s, man. Every climatic frame has to involve a guy punching. Oh my god,
It's true.
cut him off.
If it was good enough for Bogey, it's good enough for me. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, and then what happens too is there's also a film of red. So it's that kind of. Did you notice that when you're?
Oh, you mean that it would tint?
It would tint red, almost
Yeah.
like there was, bloodshed or chaos, or they were in the middle of something disruptive happening. It was to give that type of illusion to it.
Yeah.
The other thing we didn't talk about too was the train. The train was pretty amazing.
Yeah, which they called the Wanderer. Although I don't know did they ever mention the Wanderer in the show, or they just call it the Wanderer in the?
I never came across it. No.
Yeah.
No.
So the train has got it's their tricked out train. It's always got the pool table that flips over, and the and then the telegraph that's in the books. It's like the head of Shakespeare that opens up the bat pole, that kind of thing. Everything on the the cue balls that explode on the pool table. That's what it is.
Right.
I don't want to mix it up with the movie, which I actually have not seen. Did you see the execrable 1999 film version with Will Smith that we should not mention?
I refuse to watch that movie. I do like Will Smith as an actor, but I had no, sorry.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, and it's probably fine for a trashy, blockbuster movie, but it's not Wild Wild West.
It's not Wild Wild West, and I had no desire.
Yeah.
The Hague is saying, Roy Ross, I'll take time out here for thanking you guys for existing today. Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks, John.
We appreciate that.
I love it when John gets sentimental.
Yeah, it's.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, we appreciate that. But in terms of that movie's a 25-year-old movie, and no, I'm sorry, I can't, and I just wish they had an opportunity to do something that would have been I don't know, memorable in a positive way. I guess I'm just talking for me, but
it killed interest in what could have been a franchise, because it was not good. Like there was a television series they were kicking around not long after, but nobody wanted to again finance it because they were afraid people would remember the movie and how bad the movie was, and they didn't want to revive Wild Wild West because of that.
Yeah, Christian said he saw it. Unfortunately, I do like. No, and I'm not taking away from anybody that's in it. Just to clarify.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, I've read different things, and obviously there's going to be different opinions, and you can't always go by what the critics say. But based on what I just could see from the previews and what I've read, I don't desire to see it. If anybody likes it, that's fine. But it's just in terms of
I am curious because.
What I enjoyed from the 60s, I'm sorry. It's no.
I'm curious because I do like Kenneth Branagh, but it's not going to be the same Dr. Lovelace and and Elmer Bernstein did the music for it, so it's a Western score, and he did great Western. Yeah, he did the Magnificent Seven, so and a lot of the later John Wayne movies and stuff. So I know the score is good. I have the soundtrack for that, but I've never seen the movie.
But they felt that they wanted to go in a certain direction, and obviously this is a problem with movies that are being made today. And it's just, and what's so frustrating is they're trying to, it's almost like they're running out of ideas. They try to tap into something that's been established, but then even though that they're trying to tap into something that's been established, they feel the need to change it. And I'm not saying change is necessarily bad, but
it's bad.
Changes that they're making are, in my opinion, are the wrong decisions. And I it's so frustrating. But anyway, I mean, and now to be fair, I was not a fan of and I said it earlier, I was not a fan of the 1979 and 1980 reunion movies. Those were a letdown to me because it's like, and I get it, you can't,
I haven't seen them. Yeah,
it's almost like you can't go back, you can't go home. I get it. And I get it's 10 years later. And it was only 10 years later. I mean, but it wasn't the same. And the other thing is those films were more satirical. They were I always mispronounce that.
Satirical.
Satirical.
Okay.
They were poking fun. They were not being taken serious. I mean, with the Wild Wild West, they played it straight, but it was almost like it was a joke. And okay, to me, it was great to see these guys because Robert Conrad and Ross Martin. It's like, yeah, they're back. That's great. But that's kind of like where it shifted and it ended. I mean, you're taking 1970s formulaic type of structures that existed then that were applied to different shows, and you're plugging it into the Wild Wild West, and it just didn't play out right for me personally. It was a letdown, but again,
well, I won't go out of my way to watch them now.
I wouldn't,
but I still have plenty of shows to watch.
Yeah, it was a parody. I agree, Jack. Exactly, it was a self-parody. That's well said. Yeah. So, but check it out, Ross. Do me a favor. Check out maybe the first half hour of the first one and just tell me what you think.
What, the movies? I don't want to be depressed. I guess if I can go back and watch the TV series, maybe I can get away with it. But I don't want to be depressed by watching a bad TV movie with these guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
If I want to do that, I'll watch the Kiss and the Mystery of the Amusement Park or whatever.
Oh,
it is. God. Kiss and the Phantom of the Park or whatever.
I still haven't watched that. Don, exactly. In fact, Don, I was going to even bring it up about the Dark Shadows. That's with Johnny Depp, right?
Right.
Let's make it a comedy. Why I won't watch Dark Shadows movie? Yeah, same thing. Exactly. Good point.
Yeah, because they can't be bothered to, think nobody will take it seriously now, or I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, one of the things we were talking about the beginning credits, the end credits, it's a lot of fun to watch that, and with that is the music. The music of the Wild Wild West, the opening theme, the closing theme, that is so memorable. It's one of my favorites for television shows, personally, to this day. And I think that's a perfect lead-in for, and this is a sad story in regards to credit.
Richard Markowitz, Yeah, is he conducting with a cigarette there? He's got the baton in his left hand. He's got the cigarette there in his right.
That's the only photo I could find of him, Ross.
No, that's great though. That's like so indicative of the or so characteristic of the time, Yeah, that's great. He was born in Santa Barbara, and he in high school he formed his own big band, served in World War II, and following the war he studied composition with Arthur Honegger and Arnold Schoenberg again. I mentioned Schoenberg's Ode to Napoleon earlier, and how Richard Schellart performed that piece for him in Los Angeles. He studied with Schoenberg, among others. Then he got into film and television, film scores and TV scores. He did a show called The Rebel, wrote the theme for that. It was another Western about a disenchanted Confederate soldier after the war who goes west. And but anyway, Johnny Cash sung the theme song, and Richard Markowitz wrote the music for the show and the theme music. He did the Magic Sword. I don't know if you ever saw that with Basil Rathbone. It was a fantasy movie from 1961. It's not a great movie, but that's another popular film that people watching right now may recognize. And he did work on episodic television. He didn't necessarily do the theme music, but you know how they have composers come in and do an episode, or they'll do a few episodes scattered through a season, like on Star Trek. You know what I mean? They're not all Alexander Courage. You've got all the other composers working on it. He was one of the guys that worked on The Invaders. He worked on Mission Impossible. He worked on Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. Worked on Columbo. So he's a name that you see. Not a name you might recognize. For the Wild Wild West, originally Dmitry Tiomkin, the film composer, was contracted to do the main title music. And Tiomkin took 2 cracks at it, but the producer of the show, the creator of the show, didn't really think it captured the spirit that he was looking for. Because Tiomkin did High Noon, and he did a lot of westerns. He did Gunfight at the OK Corral with Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster and DeForest Kelley. He did The War Wagon with John Wayne and Kirk Douglas, but they always had like a title song sung by Frankie Lane or Tex Ritter or somebody, and then they had a serious kind of underscore, and then I guess he had done something like that for this, and it got rejected. So Richard Markowitz came in, and there's a quote here that I wrote down by him. He decided to, he said, by combining jazz with Americana, I think that's what nailed it. That took it away from the serious kind of thing that Tiomkin was trying to do. What I did essentially was to write two themes, the rhythmic contemporary theme with the Fender brass and brushes, the brushes on the drums, that vamp for the cartoon effects and for West getting himself out of trouble, and the heraldic Western outdoor theme over that. Mm-hmm. So that he worked the two together. And these were recorded by I don't know if you've ever heard of the Wrecking Crew, which was kind of the session musicians that would gather, congregate in Los Angeles. They were freelance musicians who were trained as jazz artists, and they were classical artists. Sometimes they'd have people moonlight from the Philharmonic out there, and these were the musicians. They would always have recording for Phil Spector. They'd be doing popular hits, or they back Sinatra, in his albums and that sort of thing. And that's who recorded the Wild Wild West theme. And it's just genius because even not just the theme, but the background for the first season shows, some of the early shows. Whenever West gets into a scrape, you start hearing you get the brushes on the drums.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's jazzed up. It emotes.
Then you get the Fender bass, and then you get the harmonica. And then it eventually. Yeah, it is brilliant. It really is brilliantly done. It's just such a cool score. And I learned something looking into this, that Carol Kay was on the Fender bass, a woman for that era. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be maybe unusual now, but for that time, that was like largely a man's world. And Carol Kay was on the Fender bass. If you go on YouTube and look up Carol Kay, there's an interview with her. She's in her 80s in the interview, but it's amazing what she worked on. Everything. I mean, just think of anything with a Fender bass in the 60s television or TV. Oh, she worked on Duel. Steven Spielberg's Duel.
Sure.
The sound you hear every time the truck comes on, that's her on the Fender bass. She said she made more money on Duel than she did like
her career.
Yeah, exactly. But she's really cool. It's a short interview. It's I don't know, 8 minutes long. Yeah, check that out. So that's Richard Markowitz is the guy who did that. But as the series goes on, just like with Star Trek, you have other composers that work with it. They start bringing in other guys, and they kind of redo the orchestrations on some of the stuff, and the underscore is notably different. By the fourth season, I can't remember the one guy, but it's just kind of it gets very experimental with some of the percussion in the background and stuff. But a lot of it's just kind of like gray horns, and it's just not as melodic or as jazzy. But as I said, at a point they must have gotten that directive from the studio where they wanted it more youth oriented, and then suddenly it just becomes not like the rock we have now, but the rock that they would have had in the 60s. In the background of some of the action scenes, you're like, it's like a needle drop. It's like, what is this even doing in the scene? It doesn't match what's going on the screen. But anyway, that's. I might be a little discursive or caught in my own head with that, but that's what I got to say.
That's okay. No, appreciate all that information. It's definitely worth checking out, and it's a huge part of what makes up the Wild Wild West. I mean, the theme, absolutely, and the representation,
and the background music. I think for the early seasons. Yeah.
Yes, you did some Beach Boys recordings,
right? Yeah,
and then John was saying about. The Wrecking Crew 1968 with Dean Martin.
Right.
Love the Wrecking Crew documentary. It was what Don said. Huh. A needle drop. Who today would know what that means but this crew? Yeah. It's a term of the past. It's a term of the past.
Well, what can I say?
It's all good.
It's true. It's true. I guess I'm a product of the 20th century, Roy.
Yeah. As I am. Well, Ryan was just telling me yesterday when we were hanging out, he said it's no longer when you're referring to the 60s, the 70s, and 80s. It's it's now the 1900s. I was like, oh.
Who says the 1900s? What do you mean, for the decade?
Yeah, well, no. When people talk about like that period of time, they're not saying 60s or 70s or 80s
Oh, they
anymore.
don't distinguish what era?
They're not distinguishing. They're saying, oh,
that
that
we don't know anything. That's why.
Yeah, that was a product of the 1900s, and I'm like,
yeah, but if we say the 1800s, then yeah, all right.
yeah, I mean, that's.
I guess maybe if it's far enough away, people do that. Yeah,
right. But we did that with the 1800s.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's, I don't know. Maybe it's all a blur to them now. But I can I can separate the decades quite easily.
I can separate them easily too, and it's like it's cataloged in my mind of what, you know, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. But it's just that I guess it's easier to say the 1900s.
Yeah, Matt and I were talking about this. Matt brought it up at some point. I guess he was like, I think Matt was like randomly. He's on the front stoop, just randomly asking people how many U.S. presidents they get named, like in the last, I don't know how many years, but he finally found somebody that could count back with him, that he could get back to, was it Garfield or something? I think I can get back to Lincoln.
Oh, there you go.
But Matt, yeah, it is amazing how things just kind of become a block of memory. It's no longer like, you know, it's no longer the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, you know, the tens, the aughts, the teens, the aughts, the 1890s.
Yeah. Matt just said, great to experience the show again, guys. Congratulations on the return, but I've got to jump in the cold tub and soothe my heat wave.
Yeah.
Rashes. Stay cool, Matt. Stay cool. I know
stay cool. It's too, yeah, we got to get off of here.
It's hot in Philadelphia. Bill is joining us. Bill, thanks for joining. Don't worry. He's saying sorry to be late. Glad you guys are back. A close friend of mine was in one of the Wild Wild West reunion movies. He raved about Ross Martin and was thrilled when James Cagney visited Ross during the filming. That is very cool. Very cool to hear that. And that's cool that your friend was in it. So thanks for sharing that, Bill. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're going to start to wind down. One of the things I just share real quickly is, let me see here. I had it up on the screen. We like to do this on the show, and that's the way it was. A tribute to and nod to Walter Cronkite from back in the day. So this show debuted September 17th, 1965. With that, the number one song in the U.S. was Help by the Beatles. The number one song in the UK was Make It Easy on Yourself by the Walker Brothers. Popular films in 1965 were Goldfinger. Goldfinger actually premiered Christmas Day in 1964, but obviously went into 65. The Sound of Music, My Fair Lady, That Darn Cat, and of course Thunderball, which came out.
Wow. So like the oversaturation with Star Wars is nothing new. That they had 2 James Bond movies within a year.
Oh, Ross, in regards to James Bond, 62 was Dr. No, 63 was From Russia with Love, 64 was Goldfinger, 65 was Thunderball, 66 there was none, 67 was I'm freezing up there. You Only Live Twice, and then 69 was On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So yes, it was year after year after year after year, and then there was like a 2-year gap. So now
then it came back for the one.
Then it came back.
Diamonds Are Forever. Which one was it?
Diamonds Are Forever was in 71.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they went to Roger Moore.
Then they went with Roger Moore, and then that was Live and Let Die in 73. It was The Man with the Golden Gun in 64 or 74.
See, I'll name the U.S. presidents backwards. You do the James Bond movies forwards, and we'll just pass one another.
The funny thing is, when you get to the 90s with me with the Bond movies, I start to fall off. I'm good up until 89. I know that there was a 6-year gap, and then that's when Pierce Brosnan did the first one, and that was in 95. But that's kind of where I fall off. But anyway, so folks, we are going on that note. We are going to go to the shout outs portion of the show, and that's bringing you creative awareness through our shout outs. That kind of has a nice ring to it, doesn't it, Ross?
Yeah.
So anyway,
what's it mean?
It means we're winding down, is what it means, Ross.
It sounds good, I must say.
But it sounds good anyway. So yes, Sci-Fi Distilled, our friends Mike and Mary Beth are on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and they are going to be back. They were off this week due to being up in Ticonderoga, and they will be on Wednesday, which is actually Wednesday is not July 26th, as I'm thinking about it, so I don't want to confuse anybody.
Today's the 21st. So
Today's the 21st, Wednesday, the 24th of July. So I apologize for that, folks. So just to set the record straight on that. And let me see. There we go. Okay. And they are going to be discussing the 1977 classic Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, Close Encounters has been getting a lot of attention. Ross and I were both going to try to see this together because what they did was, we were talking about this earlier, Fathom released it. It came out. It was on Sunday, the 7th of July, and then they were doing it on the 10th. Anyway, I didn't get to make it to go see it. But anyway, with Ross. And as you were saying earlier, it was a great nostalgia event. So anyway, tune in to Mike and Mary Beth. They will be discussing that this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Again, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And just want to give a nod to Country Gate Players in Belvedere, New Jersey. If you are in the Belvedere area, just to let you know, keep a lookout on the website. Visit the website at www.countrygate.org. They just completed Pollyanna today. It was actually the last performance of it, and it was really good. It was really cool because Bill directed it. Bill Scorado, who's the owner of the theater, and had a lot of children in it. Vince Foti, who is a friend of the show, was actually also in it. Vinny Foti, as he's known, and that was taking place, and it was just this weekend. Unfortunately, I did not get to see it. Cherry did not get to see it. It was just kind of a crazy weekend. But anyway, they had a matinee showing at 1 p.m. today. Definitely keep a lookout on what's going to be coming next. And again, that's for Country Gate. And you can also visit Bill's website, which is www.billscorado.com. So check that out. Want to give a shout out to Captain Phil's Planet on WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New Jersey. The captain's schedule is on Friday nights, and he's on from 9 to 11:30 p.m. I actually got to see Phil on the way up to Ticonderoga. Well, actually, I saw him in Ticonderoga this last weekend, being up there for William Shatner's weekend. So it was good to connect with Phil. And I saw him on the way up there as well, too. So it was pretty cool, just catching up. And it was a fun weekend. So definitely check out Phil's schedule. Phil does a lot of cool stuff. And in regards to this past weekend, lots of cool stuff. For Star Trek fans, it was the 59th anniversary on July 19th, 1965. It took place of the first day of filming for Where No Man Has Gone Before, Star Trek's second pilot. I always like to give a nod to this because this is definitely one of my favorite episodes. And so literally history was being begun filming with Star Trek and for its second pilot. And I
always thought those outfits were cool.
I did too, Ross. I always really liked the second pilot uniforms, especially Kirk's.
Yeah.
Spock had the raised collar a bit because obviously, they had to do all the makeup and everything. And just the episode with, Gary Mitchell and then also Dr. Elizabeth Daner, Sally Kellerman, and Gary Lockwood. Just really, really cool. So, yeah. And then the 20th of July, Diana Rigg celebrated her birthday, and sadly she has passed away, but she was born July 20th of 38. And sadly, James Doohan had passed away on July 20th, 2005. So just remembering them. And then also in regards to events taking place, the first moon landing was 55 years ago, and that was yesterday. So the Apollo 11 crew, and that's Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and also Michael Collins. So yeah, very historic day with that. So that took place. And just want to give a shout out to my friend, filmmaker Jeffrey Morris. Filming on The Eagle Obsession is in full force, and another event was taking place last weekend. Jeffrey had the opportunity to interview William Shatner for the movie. So that is very, very cool. So Jeffrey was up at the set tour, and he was with his wife, Denise, who was very lovely, very nice. And I actually had the opportunity to meet with them. It was probably for about like 20 minutes, half an hour. And it was after everything, because this filming was done after everything was taking place in regards to the William Shatner event, and then also the with Sandy being there, and then the other folks being there. So it was on Sunday, but very, very cool. In fact, I got to get some images, some shots with Jeffrey in the transporter room, and then I took some shots with him and Denise, his wife, which was fun, and then also in the briefing room. So we did that. We almost got some photos taken on the bridge, but what happened was there was a tour coming through, so the timing was bad on that. But it was very cool, and in fact that he's got William Shatner for the movie, it's very cool because, again, just folks, to put things in perspective in regards to the film, it's not only a movie that is about the Eagle. It really, there's so much more to this film. This film is really encompassing about the we were talking about the 1960s and space travel, and how the NASA program started out, and then how everything has evolved over the last 50 years. Think of the Eagle as almost being a vehicle, which is really just transporting us through the film, and with all the different types of interviews that take place and the people that are met along the way, along the journey. So it's very, very cool. Next, I want to give a shout out to Martha from Studio One Thrift. And again, she has a physical location, a physical store, as well as the online presence that you can check out in regards to that. If you do go online, I suggest that you do register, and you can register just by submitting your email address. And again, the clothing is quality, stylish, affordable clothing for both men and women. And you can also receive styling tips as well. Just make sure you register. And also, in regards to Space 1999, London 1999 is taking place in September. If you're a Space 1999 fan, definitely check it out. The website is www.space199950years.com. The dates are between September 11th and September 17th of this year. So definitely check that out. And also a quick shout out to my son, Ryan, who has a site online, which is Run by Ryan. You can visit it at www.runbyryan.com. There's no charge to register, and there are different tiers of after you have registered that you can apply and look into. And Ryan is very passionate about his running, and definitely will help you go to the next level with that. So definitely check that out. And then Ross, if you can let everybody know that what you've got planned and what's coming up down the pike.
Yeah, I mean, these are my 3 recorded shows I've got right now that are airing on KWAX out of University of Oregon. You can stream them anywhere, wherever you are, at the address listed there at the URL. Picture Perfect is the movie music show. That's Friday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Sweetness and Light is a light music show. That's cheerier music, Saturday mornings at 11 Eastern time. And The Lost Chord is unusual and neglected classical music, and that's Saturday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern time. I'll probably do, I'm going to be doing a lot of Olympic music. Obviously, that's coming up next weekend, if I have my dates correct. So I've got film composers who wrote music for the Olympics. Obviously, John Williams wrote a lot of fanfares for the Olympics, but I've got things by Basil Polidoris and, Angelo Badalamenti, who did the David Lynch movies, and stuff like that. It'll be on Picture Perfect, and we'll see what else I come up with. I don't have everything in the can yet, but keep watching my Facebook page at Classic Ross Amico. I put updates on there, usually on the days that the shows air, to kind of preview them. So again, that's at KWAX, and my Facebook page is Classic Ross Amico. Thanks, Ryan.
Oh, thanks, Ross. And the last thing I'm going to say is Ross and I will be back. We will be back this coming Friday, which will be episode 235, and it is not the Wild Wild West, but it is going to be X, the man with the X-ray eyes, and it's the classic 1963 movie starring Ray Milland. So we will be discussing this. This was a Roger Corman film. looking forward to talking about this. And again, that will be this coming Friday. And I will be sharing the event on the show's page in regards to that. So we are back. And there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, Ross, it felt good. It was a solid 2 hours. We made it.
Yeah.
We did it.
It feels better now that I have the fan set up over here.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
John saying, "Oh my God, awesome flick, Corman."
Oh, we got an accolade from the Hague.
Hey,
well, we're doing something right. Yeah. Well, good, Christian. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, Christian.
Yeah, some of the episodes are better than others, but they're fun because you see so many familiar faces, and they are creative, some of them. So
I'm just taking a look at some of the comments.
Just watch out for that Kraken Uranus. I mean, Kraken Uranus.
There you go. William is saying, "I'm so in love with Diana Rigg." Yeah, Diana Rigg. I think we all had crushes on Diana Rigg back in the day. Mrs. Peel.
She had something. I'll tell you that. Yeah,
that was a really good show. Love the Avengers, and we discussed the Avengers too.
We did. That was another series we covered. Yeah,
we covered an episode. I think we dedicated. It is really tough to doing a whole series, especially if it's a long running series, because there's so many episodes.
We did spring off of the one episode. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, we had wanted to discuss the show for a while. It had come up, but there's a lot to it. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot that we did not cover. I mean, we kind of touched upon the surface. Yeah. I mean, sadly too, both Robert Conrad and Ross Martin have passed away. Robert Conrad about, I don't know, almost close to 4.5 years. It's crazy he's been gone that long. He had a radio show that he did too that was on.
Well, he would have a great radio voice, I must say. He had the range of his voice was right in a certain
pitch.
Yeah. He had a very good voice for speaking.
Yeah. And then Ross Martin, Ross and I were talking about it before the show. He passed away 43 years ago. He was only 61. And he had a heart attack. I mean, he had a heart attack while he was doing this show, and he lived through it. And then I think he was playing tennis, and then that's when because he was an avid tennis player, and it was after playing tennis that he had the heart attack, and sadly it took him.
Don't exercise.
Bill said, "My priest actually used to work for Bob Conrad in radio." Wow, that's pretty cool.
There was another Robert Conrad in classical radio. I have his mug. I should have had that here. Look, I have Robert Conrad's mug, but it's actually, he was the general manager at the Cleveland station.
Oh, okay.
A legend in classical music radio, but not the same guy.
Not the same guy. It's all good.
And let's not confuse him with William Conrad.
Yeah. Canon. Totally different actor.
Who also had a radio.
Yeah.
Came from radio. Yeah.
Very deep voice. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, folks. We appreciate you tuning in on this Sunday, and try to stay cool out there. And also, thanks for the birthday wishes. Part of the reason why I put up about July 20th. All those, I always thought it was kind of cool to have those connections. But thank you for those wishes. Much appreciated. And just wishing everyone a great week ahead. Enjoy the summer. It's crazy. We're head. I always feel like this is like the hump. We get to this point, and it's like, not that summer ends with the end of August, but it's just like it's coming soon. And Ross is smiling because I know how much he loves summer.
but the insects are only just starting to sing.
Yeah, the katydids are out. Ask Sherry about that. She loves the katydids. And the katydids are so cool. Those are the bugs that you hear in the background, and they are literally, truly the sounds of summer, and they are so cool.
Only just starting.
And they actually started early here. We got them because they love the heat.
Oh, really?
They started about 2 weeks ago. They usually start around the 26th of July around here.
Yeah.
But
I can't wait for Halloween. So
there you go. 3 months away, Ross. 3 months.
It'll go like that. All right. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper, everyone. Take care. Be safe. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you on Friday. Bye-bye.